702.
World of Work.
So, on our World of Work feature today, we are discussing how to make the work environment more friendly to mothers. Working moms are not only raising families, but they're also bringing, resilience, empathy, and innovation into the boardroom. So some people will argue that I've seen the benefits of being a working mom. I've seen how being a mom and juggling all sorts of things has actually just somehow elevated me and helped me when I'm in the boardroom. And yes, while the impact of mothers in the workplace is undeniable, the statistics actually paint a concerning picture, from the cost of childcare to the widening motherhood wage gap. Working mothers often face immense challenges in the workplace. And if you are a working mom, I'd like to hear what your experience has been. How have you been juggling the two? How do you think this has helped you in the workplace? And what changes would you like to see? Because statistics show that childcare costs, a lack of flexibility even in the workplace, and the motherhood wage penalty are pushing many women out of the workplace. So are South African workplaces even doing enough to create family-friendly environments, or are we still far behind? According to the 2025 State of Motherhood Survey by Motherly, a staggering 66% of mothers said that the cost and stress of childcare led them to consider leaving working or reducing their hours. I remember actually having a conversation with Mpumi Madisha, who is the group CEO of Bidvest. I should try and find that clip for you, where she came on the show. We were doing the hanging out feature with her, and she was talking about how difficult it is to really be a CEO of such a huge company, and you still need to worry about, the expectations that are there for you as a mother. Anja van Beek is a talent strategist who's going to guide us through this conversation. Anja, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. How lovely to talk again.
Yeah. So first of all, maybe let's start with, just because there are some mom who are saying, oh, I see the benefits that come with those skills that I get when I'm at home, the skills of juggling everything else. And I imagine you probably have your own experience as well. What have you seen just from your observation about the experience women have at home and how juggling things has somehow benefited them even in the boardroom or at work as managers?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a powerful question, because I think we sometimes overlook what we call transferable skills. And transferable skills, I want the working mums to remember that that's their experience in everyday life, that they can take over in a work-related scenario. So if we think of a few, you mentioned resilience, and I think that's such a beautiful, powerful one, because we all understand how much more resilience we need to be in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of work. But I think when we think of resilience, it's really about navigating setbacks and really learn from adversity and be able to adapt more easily to unknown and uncertainties in the workplace. And I think that's something that working mums can definitely relate to, because as a woman, there's so many balls that you need to juggle. And it's all about how do you learn to recover from setbacks and how do you adjust to new circumstances. And that's where aspects like humor and optimism and even emotional maturity can support you to build resilience.
Yeah.
So that's just one.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
And another one?
So the other one that I wanted to mention is emotional regulation. I mean, we just know how important emotional intelligence is in the world of work. And emotional regulation really highlights how we can stay calm under pressure, especially if you think of managing diverse teams. We have 5 different generations in the workplace, and that's where emotional regulation really supports you, because we are empathetic navigators. When we think of taking care of the families and then taking those skills over to work.
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of support that working moms need so that they're not juggling everything by themselves. How do you think workplaces can be more accommodating to moms? And from your observation and work you do in the space, are most workplaces very friendly and accommodating to moms?
Yeah, I would say not necessarily all, and that's why I would love the listeners to phone in and share their experience. What I have seen, the most successful companies, if we talk about accommodating flexibility, is really to start off with conversations around inclusive dialogue. Often I see that the HR teams or even the managers and leaders at an organization decide this is what we would like to offer the moms or the working moms in the business. And that might not necessarily be what they're working for or the support that they need. So I think it really starts off with having that dialogue with the people involved. And then the other part that is definitely making a big difference is flexibility and flexible structures. And we definitely do see that more in the workplace. But I think there's room for even bigger transformation there. I mean, flexible working hours is definitely one that we see. Even remote work, now that we have a hybrid environment, is also something that we see. But there's things like job sharing, where you take one role and you can actually divide it into two people being responsible for that, perhaps one in the morning, one in the afternoon, or 2 or 3 days a week, whatever. But that's the type of conversations that we need to have. And I think for businesses, it's also having a look at how do you recognize the contributions of mums and doing that visibly. Do you spotlight what they're doing? Do you have a specific acknowledgement where you focus on their development, perhaps looking at development opportunities? And even are you intentional about retaining them in the workplace? Because so often, and I see that especially women being pregnant, going off on maternity leave and coming back, and that's often where they struggle a lot. Now, if we think of retaining them, it might even be a scenario where you phase in after maternity leave. So there's just a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more support when you first return back to the office. So that's just a few to look at. I've recently been involved in a beautiful program where we focus on power skills for women in the workplace. And what was interesting for me is to see how much the women value just having an opportunity to brainstorm and have conversations with one another. And it's almost as if there was a natural mentorship happening afterwards, and people leveraging on this is working for me, this is perhaps how I'm thinking of the scenario, and really supporting one another. So even just having those support networks in place can make a huge difference.
Yeah. And I mean, there are many women who fear that starting a family will slow down their careers. What would you say to those that are worried about balancing the roles? I mean, one of the things that I was surprised by just yesterday was that even with maternity leave, for instance, is you're really getting about 65 or 70% of your salary, somewhere about that. And there are some women who actually are single women and they get concerned about that. Like, you start now considering, should I even expand my family, seeing that I'm going to be squeezed further financially as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is actually linking back to that stat that you've mentioned about the widening of the gender pay discrepancy that we see. Now, to answer your question, that's something that I think each and every woman needs to decide for themselves. There's nothing that I necessarily can say to influence their decision, but what I would like to advise them is to really go and consider what is important for you as a woman. What is the type of life that you want to create for yourself, even if you're a single mom? And then from there, being very specific to plan accordingly. I think sometimes as women, we are afraid to ask for help. And I think if you're there contemplating, should I start a family or not? I mean, I'm fortunate to be a mom, and I would never ever, take that away. I mean, I cannot imagine my life without kids. But it definitely takes some courageous conversations, because even if you just think of the support at home, would it be your significant other? Would it be your partner? Would it perhaps be your extended family? Or who's your support? Because you can't do everything on your own. And I think that is sometimes just starting with having those conversations and even put down boundaries. I mean, if we think of the work environment, and we spoke about the hybrid work environment, is so often I see women continuing after hours because they focus on quality, they focus on making an impact, and it's actually for them to say, no, I'm putting down the boundary. 5 o'clock is my ritual to close the laptop, and I'm now putting on the other hat. And I think in the end, everything is possible, especially if you are present in the current moment. And what I mean by present in the current moment, meaning that if you at a work business meeting, be present there and don't worry about the homework or the cake that you still need to bake. Or if you're at home doing homework, don't worry about the presentation for tomorrow. Rather, just be present in that moment. So that's a few tips that I can give the women. I think the financial strain is a big concern, especially as you've mentioned, the rising cost of childcare, the stress of now there's not transport or whatever the crisis might be. But that's where they say it takes a village to raise a family. And that's where you need to, focus on the people who can support you. Yeah.
And speaking of support, I mean, if there was shared responsibilities, in most households, I'm sure we wouldn't really be having this kind of conversation, unfortunately. And of course, there are single dads out there, by the way, who probably are facing similar pressures, but it's mostly women, who some of them are single, some of them still married, still partnered, but they still somehow take on the bigger and much responsibilities in the household, which is still unfair. Like, who says it must be them who cook every day? Who says it must be them who stress about transport and homework and all that? But there's some women out there who go through that. And I want you to share your experiences with us. Are you a working mom? And how do you think this, one, has helped you in the workplace, but also what changes would you like to see? Do you think workplaces in this country are doing enough to create family-friendly environments, or are we still far, far, far behind? I'd like to hear from your experiences. 011-883-0702. Send your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702. 22 after 11.
702. World of Work.
25 minutes after 11 o'clock. We're talking about workplaces and how they can be more family-friendly, more friendly to working moms as well, and what needs to change. We're taking your WhatsApps on 072-702-1702.
Hi, Clement. I think it's difficult to be a mother and be employed full-time, because if you work in a very busy environment, there's always development courses that are taking places. During working day, you are extremely busy and you are expected to get home and study certain development modules, whereby when you get home, you don't even have that time, and because you have to care for your little ones. Then the next day when you come to work, it looks like you are not prepared, you are not interested, or you are not willing. But unfortunately, it's just so difficult.
On the topic of workplace flexibility, and in this case, in the context of working moms, I think it's not just working moms. It's just in general the situation that women are in as caretakers. For me, a very enduring and lasting impression was made on me during lockdown, when we worked extremely long hours because of the pressure and the staff impacts, etc. And the ladies in the management team simply could not keep up, because while the men would sit on meetings 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock in the morning, these ladies are the people who have to prepare, lunch, dinner, lunch boxes, help with homework, clean, tidy up the house, etc., etc. And just the sheer practicality of that excludes them from being able to compete for senior management positions, because the gentlemen sitting on those same meetings, had wives or partners taking care of us, whereas the ladies had to do it all for themselves. So I think, it's a very uneven battle, regardless of whether a company is willing to be accommodating or not.
Hello, Clement. Thank you for the wonderful topic around working moms. I would like to remain anonymous for this one. This is anonymous calling from Rodiport, and I feel like companies do not really understand or explore how they can support working moms. It's pretty much a one-size-fits-all approach. For an example, you get an invitation to an event where they are meant to celebrate you and your achievement, but the event takes place on a Thursday night, so for me as a single working mom, that for me is a huge inconvenience. I've been working the whole day. Now I need to attend an evening event on a Thursday, but on Friday, my children still need to go to school. So I wish that in an effort to celebrate us and our achievements, they would pay closer attention as to what would work for somebody like me who is a single mother and still working.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And Anja, what really boggles my mind is if really companies are aware of the situation in this country, in fact, globally, in as far as the responsibilities that women have go in the household, even women who are partnered. It's worse for single parents, but you've got women who are partnered and still shoulder a lot of responsibility. If that is so clear and it's not questionable, why then are employers not thinking of ways to try? Because they do get value from these women in the workplace. Then why are we not thinking about ways to make these environments more friendlier to them, knowing the kind of pressure that they face outside these walls?
Yeah, I think that's such an important question, and I can so relate with what the woman said that called in, especially the one saying, at 5 o'clock when you close the office door, then you start your second day job. Yeah. And I think it might be that people still have a bias about availability, and perhaps thinking that if you're not available 24/7, you're not committed to the work, which is not so. So I think it really boils down to that outdated thinking of what a leader is. And if we just think of that feminine leadership style, we know what they bring to the table is that empathy, the compassion, the focus on relational strengths and collaboration and inclusivity. So it's, as you said, we need to open up those conversations about how can we support them. And I love what that anonymous said, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. If you really value and want to retain the talent as working moms, let's start having those conversations to see what exactly do you need to support you, and perhaps have different options available, because it's a different requirement for each and every one.
Anja van Beek, thank you so much. Always great having you on the show on such important conversations. Anja van Beek is a talent strategist. It's now 11:30. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Mbali, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has officially raised the limit for private donations to political parties to 30 million rand a year. He's acted on a resolution taken by the National Assembly in May after a revision of the limit and the threshold for declaring donations by Parliament's Home Affairs Committee. Members of the E-Hailing Partners Council of Gauteng are set to march to the province's Transport Office to hand over a memorandum of demands today. The group says its march follows a number of failed attempts to have their issues resolved. These matters range from safety concerns, fair price setting, and the alleged impounding of their e-hailing vehicles. And the city of Joburg is rolling out its accelerated service delivery operation in Sandton today as it continues preparations for the G20 summit in November. Sandton is expected to be a central hub for international delegates, with many set to be accommodated in the area. Those are the headlines this evening.